And we are live. I will go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the City Council for November 21st, 2022. Councilmember Shin advised that he wouldn't be here, and we know that the city attorney had said she wouldn't be here, so no legal questions of any kind are permitted at all whatsoever. With that, invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Councilmember Mosley.
All right. Dear Lord, this is the season for giving thanks. This is Thanksgiving coming up, and I think everybody here can be thankful that we live in a city such as Maumelle that's safe, friendly, small town, and a very livable place to live. Please watch over all of our residents and everybody here tonight for it during safe. Hopefully, they'll have safe travel to wherever they go, and that people that come to visit will have safe travel. We pray for those things. And we would also please grant us wisdom tonight in our decision making here at the council. Thank you very much. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Mosley. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the November 7th regular meeting minutes. Open the floor for discussion. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Next up is the financial statement review. Ms. Mathis, the floor is yours.
Good evening. As you can tell, I'm a little bit froggy. I've been out sick, which is part of the reason that you did not get financial reports until later today. So my apologies for that, but I didn't want to put off presenting the October financials to you tonight. So we figured later was better than not at all. So we are taking a look here at our financials as of the end of October. Looking first at our general fund revenues. Our county millage tax current year-to-date is $47,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $102,000 more than the prior year. I put a note in here of receipts for November, December, and then what we'll get in January as well are going to be pretty high on our millage tax related to the debt that we're paying off. So because the trustee has enough funds to call the debt December 1st, any additional collections that come in for the millage tax on the debt service will be turned over to the general fund. And any excess that the trustee has will also be turned over to the general fund. So this line will end up pretty well over budget, but not something that will continue, but we will have probably some fairly significant inflows towards the last couple months of this year. On our franchise fees, current year-to-date, $146,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $112,000 more than the prior year. Our state turnback funds are $3,000 behind year-to-date budget and $2,000 less than the previous year. County sales tax is $441,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $467,000 more than the previous year. The city sales tax is $117,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $139,000 more than the previous year. Police department revenues are $105,000 ahead of budget year-to-date, $118 more than the previous year. The fire department is $226,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $136 more than the previous year. Animal services is $7,000 ahead of budget, $14,000 more than the previous year. Parks and Rec is $4,000 behind budget year-to-date, but $10,000 more than the previous year. And seniors are $42,000 ahead of budget year-to-date and $72,000 more than the previous year. All the other revenues are ahead of budget year-to-date and ahead of the prior year. other than that transfer that happened in 2021, an operating transfer that makes it look like we're way under the prior year in that miscellaneous income category. Overall, revenues for the year are $1.4 million ahead of budget year to date and $711,000 more than the previous year. On the expenditure side, expenditures in most departments remain below budget year to date other than citywide services, which is partially related to the timing of some various annual renewals, and we have some expenses that have been a little higher than anticipated, and the mayor and city clerk treasurer and I are kind of keeping a close eye on all of those. Last month, the senior services looked over budget year to date, and I had a note in here that I had a feeling some personnel expenses were not being allocated properly in the senior transportation program. We have several positions that are partially paid for out of the general fund and partially paid for out of the street fund for that transportation program. And I had a feeling in looking at the numbers that something wasn't quite right in our payroll system, that they weren't being allocated the way they were budgeted to be. And that turned out to be true. There was 3 employees that we went back and did some reclassifications on. And in fact, I also, through our budget process, found one more in Public Works that was supposed to be a 50-50 split and wasn't. So we're doing some reclassification work on those, got it fixed in the payroll system moving forward. So senior services is no longer over budget year to date on expenses, and that's part of the reason why they're. So our general fund balance, as of the end of October, the fund balance is $5.1 million over the required minimum balance. Current year revenues are $854,000 more than expenses, and the unappropriated balance in the general fund related to the ARPA funds is $2.5 million. That is been adjusted after the budget resolution at the last council meeting for the pickleball planning and engineering. So, taking a look at our street fund, the millage is $1,000 behind budget year to date, $12,000 more than the prior year. State turnback funds are $332,000 under budget year to date and $95,000 more than the prior year. It's trending pretty close to what I said. I think by the end of the year we'll be about $400,000 under budget on that line item. And the municipal league has backed off on the per capita dollar amount for the budget for this year and for next year. So we're kind of looking at that as budgeting for next year too, trying to make sure that we plan accordingly since those revenues have come in lower than anticipated from the state. Street aid program current year to date is $62,000 ahead of budget and $53,000 more than the prior year. Both the streets and senior services transportation departments remain under budget by $451,000, and their expenses, as we talked about, were budgeted to be higher than the previous year. Current available street fund balance at the end of October is $4.5 million. Whoop. I was on the sanitation fund. I didn't realize it. I must have pushed a screen too far. So now we're looking at the sanitation fund. Those sanitation fees are $3,000 behind budget year to date, but $3,000 more than the prior year. And their operating expenses, $72,000 under budget and $63,000 more than the previous year. Personnel expenses are $256,000 under budget, $57,000 more than the previous year. Sanitation fund balance at the end of October is $1.9 million. Not a lot of changes in either of the any of the other funds. The police and fire fund revenues are $58,000 ahead of budget year to date and $69,000 more than the previous year, which tracks percentage-wise with our sales tax as well. That is all I have.
Are there any, Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, Ms. Mathis. Do we have any estimates of what will be distributed back to Maumelle from the finalizing of the debt?
I don't at this time. I can take a look at what the November distribution was from the county. And then when the trustee calls the bonds on December 1st, okay. So in a week or so, we'll know exactly how much she had left over to that they'll be sending back to us. I do believe it's in the millions range, though.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question
Yes.
on the senior wellness fees, their revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome that they're ahead of budget. Is that all from COVID and attendance coming back? Or they have
So-
some other programs that are raising fees or
We-
raising revenue?
We had worked with Nicole over the last several years when we did budget to try to get some more realistic budget numbers. When I first got here, they were pretty high and we had never come anywhere close to reaching them. And so we had kind of pulled back over the last couple of years on some of those revenue projections in that department. So we went from COVID, where we had kind of dropped down to some low levels, and they have seen a large increase in utilization and membership fees. And that's Nicole and her staff really pushing membership and utilization and stuff in that program, that they've seen those revenues come up and did a little bit better than what we were kind of trying to put some stretch goals in coming out of COVID.
Okay, super. Thank you, ma'am.
Any additional questions or discussion items? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second to accept the financials. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you, Liz. We will move on to a procedural motion. I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We will move on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the second reading of ordinance 1082. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1082, an ordinance amending Section 21-1 of the Maumelle City Code to require publication of the names of businesses delinquent in paying annual registration fees, to increase those fees, to designate a portion of said fees to be paid to the Police and Fire Fund, and for other purposes.
We'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Tierney?
Yes, last meeting it was mentioned that this was a new tax, and I disagree with that, because it's the fiscal responsibility of the council to recover the cost of services provided by the city. And the reason this proposal places the entirety of the very modest increase, which still keeps Maumelle as the second cheapest place to do business in all of Arkansas, is because no segment of the community relies on the police and fire services more than the business community. This is a simple fiscal responsibility to keep our fee schedules in line with the escalating costs that the city incurs. And once again, I'll emphasize the importance of increasing the pay of our first responders. I'd also mentioned previously that our fee schedule was woefully out of date, just as the permit and planning fees were recently adjusted. This is a tiny increase that will not cause a hardship of any sort to any business. And as I said before, it's just a matter of fiscal responsibility that goes beyond, dollars and common sense. It also reduces the workload of the city clerk's office. As the city attorney mentioned the last meeting, for this to take place, in effect in time to be a benefit to the city clerk for 2023, I'd like to propose enacting an emergency clause so it would take effect in 30 days and not be subject to the 60-day waiting period. And I'd also like to propose that taking this back, if that is approved, it would take us back to the first reading. And then I'd propose that we do all three readings in one night so it would be able to take effect in time for the city clerk to be able to use it next year.
Thank you, sir. Is there any additional discussion on ordinance 1082? Going once, going twice. If not, this will be on third reading at the next city council meeting. Oh, was there a motion?
Yeah, I made a motion to add the emergency clause. I don't think I said the word motion. I said I'd like to propose.
Yeah, that's why I was waiting to see if there would be a motion. For ordinance 1082, an emergency clause to be enacted requires that there be a section in the ordinance written establishing the reasons for the emergency declaration, which we don't have in this copy.
Right, which is why I'd like to make a motion that we add that.
Okay. Please state what you would like stated in what I presume will be section 6.
I'd like to make a motion that we enact the emergency clause to get this where it will take place effect immediately rather than the 60-day waiting period.
Thank you, sir. We also need a statement stating why it is an emergency.
In order to be able to take effect with the start of the 2023 fiscal year.
Order to. You also mentioned it resetting.
Yeah, so I would probably need to make that after we saw if it would even pass to have the clause added, or should I do both at the same time?
I don't think the emergency clause being added materially changes it. It would change it after it was approved and we were making a motion to enact the emergency clause. Why would you come up with complicated legal questions when the city attorney's not here? No, so anyways, we have a motion on the floor to add an emergency clause to section 6 that says emergency clause in order to take effect within the 2023 fiscal year. Just changing it to 23. In the 2023 fiscal year. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there a second for that motion? Going once, going twice. Sold. Motion fails for lack of second. Is there any other discussion on ordinance 1082? Okay, this will be on third reading at the next city council meeting. The next order of business, that concludes unfinished business. We'll move on to new business. First item is the Civil Service Commission appointment. We have 3 applicants. Y'all have received a letter and or resume included in the council packet. Councilmember Williams?
I feel like I'm going to have to recuse from discussion and vote in this matter.
All right, thank you. So what we typically do for Civil Service Commission and other board appointments is we don't require that the applicant step out of the room so that they don't have the advantage of hearing the questions that will be asked during the interview process. I have 3 applicants, Sam Williams, John Jones, and Kelly Hughes. We can go in that order, so I would request that John Jones and Kelly Hughes step out, and Miss Mathis Mathis? Doreen will show you where to go. There's a Mathis and a Mattis. Anyways, first applicant is Sam Williams. If you will come on down to the podium and introduce yourself.
I'm Sam Williams. I live at 200 Bay Point Cove, unit number 201 here in Maumelle. It's in my letter. I've lived here since I became your police chief in 2000. Served as your police chief for approximately 19 and a half years after serving 24 and a half years or so with the Little Rock Police Department, retired as a captain. I like serving the community. I like being a part of it. I like being able to be a part of things, especially things that are important. And I think a Civil Service Commission appointment is incredibly important. I have never lost sight of the fact that we are dealing with people's careers. On one end, if you are participating in the promotion process, that's an incredibly important step in an officer's career and career path. Conversely, if you are dealing with an officer on a disciplinary measure, especially a serious one, that is also an incredibly important part of an officer's future. We take that very seriously. Everywhere I have been, I have reminded our group, as I said in the letter, of the importance of what we're doing. I tried my best to approach every one of these situations fairly, prayerfully, and intelligently. I wanted to understand what the issue was, what we're dealing with, our facts, and then given it due consideration, make your decision. Make your decision known, and then go on. I don't think there's anything left to ponder or delay or anything like that. Once you have all the decision that you're really reasonably going to get, it's time to make your voice known and let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I want to continue to serve Maumelle. I want to continue to work with people in commissions. Certainly, the question might come up, will you know anybody on the police department? I certainly hope so. We are small enough. Now there are people now I'm not real familiar with anymore, but certainly I will know them. And man, I hope I have left the kind of footprint that it wouldn't be necessary to ask me if I could be fair. I have fired officers and promoted officers always with the understanding that what we're doing is incredibly important. So certainly feel free to ask that question. I'll probably have some kind of answer ready, but I hope that my career would speak for the fairness that I tried to bring to this job and will bring to this position. With that said.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions for Sam Williams? Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your many years of service to the community at the police department. Your name is synonymous in the community with the word safety.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And that's what we're all here for. I think that's what everybody in Maumelle is here for primarily, is safety. We've got a safe community. I'm sure there's lots of things that go on that we never know about, and that's something we've always been thankful for and appreciate all you do, and you made it look effortless. I do appreciate your wanting to stay involved in the community. If it were me, if I had done the job like you've done, I'd be out of here. But I'd say that's enough of all that. But I would ask you that question you're referring to. What I'm sure I got to thinking about this, and I thought, what happens if somebody comes with an issue to the commission that is that you're familiar with the person or even the issue? Do you recuse? How does that work?
If I am familiar with the issue to the point that I have helped investigate, or I have advised a member of the department on what to do or what not to do. If I was a part of the incident, I mean, some of the incidences I was involved in are probably still stuck in the court somewhere. And if there was a complaint or something that came from that, then certainly I would recuse. I wouldn't pretend to try to wear 2 or 3 hats. If it's somebody I know, either in a disciplinary matter or a promotional matter, no, sir, I wouldn't recuse. I would be as fair as I know how to be. And at the end of the day, I would look at the 2 people that mean the most to me, my God and my wife, and say, I did what was right. And as long as I can do that, I'm good.
Okay, I'll yield to any further questions.
Any questions for Mr. Williams? All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You want me to bring someone in?
Please. We'll know if they can hear us if they all come running in anyways.
Who?
Thank you. John Jones.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Commissioners Harrington and Durham, for showing up, scouting out the new talent that will be arriving. Mr. Jones, come on down.
All right, price is right.
The price is right, and you are up. If you could just introduce yourself to the city council and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you so choose, and then there may be questions afterward.
Absolutely. Well, first thing, do you guys have a copy of the resume? Good deal, good deal. I have an extra couple if you guys need anything. Oh, name is John Jones. I've lived in Maumelle proper for 7 years, and I lived just north of town, Panther Mountain, for 14 years. Lifelong resident of Arkansas. Born and raised Morrilton. I'm not sure if you guys know where that is. Oldest of 6 kids. You know, a lot of good things there. Wife and 3 kids. They're kind of grown up now, so got a little bit of the empty nest. As far as, hearing about the position, it's one of my good friends. I was speaking to him about, just being part of the community and serving and that type of thing. And he gave me the suggestion of this. Sent me the resume, sent me the link, and one thing I did was I popped on the website and watched several of the meetings and what you guys do. One important thing that I really enjoy with it, it's allowing me to protect the firefighters and the police officers. One thing, when I growing up as a long time ago, my dad was the union president from all my childhood through I graduated high school at Frigidaire in Conway. Working through negotiations, day-to-day implementation of things. Professional college life, math, of course, you've seen that. I ran track and field and cross country 40 pounds ago. So had a great time there, and I went back and I've part-time coached at Central Arkansas for 17 years, and I'm in my 3rd year at Ouachita Baptist. So I love doing that. Met my wife at work in Conway, but she's a lifelong resident of Maumelle. She's been here since she was in grade school. So Maumelle is a wonderful community. It's really a special community as far as if you look at, how well people do here, where we're at, we have a special thing here. We're not just a regular town. We're a town that we need to protect the services, protect the citizens, and really make good decisions, that type of thing. For my research on the City Civil Service Commission, it's one of those that you have to protect the rules, kind of like officiating. I did that for 14 years, basketball, 5 state championships, but quite frankly, you have more fun working the senior high game in Bologna than a lot of times the state championship down in Hot Springs. It's really a good time. You get to meet a lot of people and work through some situations that probably not nice, but if half the people love you and half the people hate you, you probably did a good job officiating. So as far as this is you guys' interview, I'm a talker. I can go through a lot of stuff, but quite frankly, this is to find the best candidate for the Civil Service Commission. So, hey, shoot, give me some good questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Jones?
No questions?
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, did you say you live on Panther Mountain?
I lived there for 14 years, 110-224, right on the top.
Okay, you did, but you're in Maumelle now?
Oh, yeah, I live right over here on Hogan Drive.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes,
I wanted to
sir.
clarify that. I wasn't sure if you said you had lived there or you still were, but
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that very much, and thank you for your interest in getting involved in the community. This is a very responsible commission that there is a body of knowledge and all that sort of thing, and so
Absolutely.
I think with your education and all your stuff, you'd be a good fit. I think we have 3 wonderful candidates
Absolutely.
tonight.
I was talking to
So-
Kelly. She's a great candidate, too. I feel
So-
good being part of a community where you have many people applying for things. Sometimes it's just like, hey, could you do this for me? But
Yeah.
here you have people wanting to serve, so it's great. That's something about our community.
All right. I'd also, take my hat off with you as far as running cross-country. I tried it one year in high school, and that's the toughest thing I ever tried to do. My little short legs just wouldn't go fast enough, so.
I feel you there.
But, you must have had incredible endurance, so. That's all I've got right now. I'll yield here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Jones, they let you off easy. Thank you.
Yes, they
You're
did.
welcome to have a seat out here, if you'd like.
Appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jay, can you bring in the next contestant, please? And Sam Williams, you can return to the room if you'd like. I can see where he is sitting. It reminds me of being on the city council and looking out the door in the old council chambers at his very animated facial expressions. Jay, can you let Sam know he can come in if he wants? Come on down, Miss Hughes. You are the next contestant.
Yay.
If you could just
Dryer,
take a minute.
refrigerator.
What's that?
I said, did I get a dryer, refrigerator? What
Yes,
do I get?
$1. Just take a minute to introduce yourself, if you'd like, and then we'll give the council a chance to ask any questions if they so choose.
Okay. Kelly Hughes, 4-year resident of Maumelle, coming from 20-year resident of Little Rock. Have a master's degree in human resources and have spent 30 years in employment, recruitment, selection, retention, and labor relations. First 20 were in private sector, and then the last 10 have been spent at the City of Little Rock as the senior employment analyst, dealing almost exclusively with fire and police entry and promotional processes. So,
Are there any questions? Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to visit with you here just briefly. Appreciate your interest very much.
Thank you.
You seem to have extraordinary qualifications. I can't imagine that we've gotten such great people here tonight, but thank you very much for applying. Have you watched videos, or actually have you attended some of our commission meetings?
I've watched videos, and I've actually attended the Little Rock Civil Service Commission meetings many times.
Are they kind of similar?
Little Rocks are more exciting.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah.
No, yours seem to be very quick to the point, so.
Okay. Yeah, I marvel at you probably know the subject matter so well that there's not that big of a learning curve, would be my guess. But otherwise, I would think after, I applaud you for wanting to do this occasionally in the evenings when you've been doing this related things during the day. But I guess that's all I've got. But if somebody else, I'll yield to whoever else would like to ask a question. But thank you very much for applying. Again, you're very qualified, and I appreciate you. How long did you say you lived here?
I've lived in Maumelle for 4 years. It'll be 4 years in December.
4 years. What neighborhood do you live in?
I live over off Fairway Loop. Ninth Fairway Loop.
Fairway Loop. Okay. You must be maybe a golfer or something.
No, actually, when I moved from Little Rock, I wanted a single-family residence in Little Rock, and I don't play golf, and I bought a condo on the golf course in Maumelle. That's just the way life goes sometimes.
Anything else you'd like to tell us? And that's all I've got.
No, as far as application, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the 3 you've gotten. So, I mean, and I'm a firm believer in donating 10% of my time, money, and talents, and I'm always looking for opportunities to do that. So this seemed like a perfect alignment with my skill set.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there any additional questions? Thank you. They let everyone off pretty easy tonight. You're welcome to have a seat. As is customary, we will pass out a written ballot of the 3 applicants. Please make sure that you write your name legibly, so that we can go back and see, what it says. Crazy signatures are not the best. While those are being filled out and passed to the center, I would just thank all three of the applicants. I think, Councilmember Mosley said it, well. We have, three very qualified people, and that is always nice to have. I would encourage anyone who does, two of you won't get the position, is probably the way this will play out. I'm no fortune teller, but that's my prediction. I'd encourage the other two of you to remain active, come back a second time. We don't always have three people applying. Sometimes you're twisting someone's arm just to get one person, applying, so, please feel free to return. Do I need to keep stalling with stories here?
Here, I'm sorry, I forgot to pass mine down.
There may be a runoff because we'll need 5 votes, for someone, and with only 6 people here, the likelihood of having to do this a second time is high. Councilmember Holt?
The other, whichever of the two others, they could always run for city council.
That is correct. Have you received, I said 6, there's 5. I forgot. So we do, as predicted, have a runoff. We'll pass out a second ballot. Please choose from Sam Williams or Kelly Hughes. Ooh, and this gets interesting.
Does it have to be?
It has to be 5.
In the absence of, okay.
So I hope everyone's ready for an arm wrestling if we don't get 5. That's unanimous. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. We do not have 5 votes, which is what is required to appoint someone to the Civil Service Commission.
Can I make a motion to add another commissioner to the Civil Service Commission?
No.
Thought I'd try.
So here in a second, we're going to pass the ballots back out. If someone, Councilmember Mosley?
So what you're saying is those of us that are voting tonight, it has to be unanimous?
Yes, yes. And so what we have done in the past, I believe for a council member appointment, it might have been a civil service or planning commission appointment, was postpone it because we had multiple absences. Just due to the nature of 2 council member absences and 1 abstention leaves 5 people voting, and 5 votes is what's required to appoint to the Civil Service Commission.
What I would suggest is we make another round here, and if we don't get a unanimous one, that we postpone it until the next meeting.
We'll pass these back out. Is there any additional comments that anyone has? Okay. This is the final round.
We don't have any more copies.
Vote again. Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Holt, we're voting again because we need 5 people to make an appointment. And we have 5 people voting. And we will see if the stars have aligned. I'll wait until we get your ballots, but we do not have unanimous. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to table this discussion until the next city council meeting.
So moved.
I've got a motion, Councilmember,
I'll second it.
a motion and a second. Councilmember Gardner?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is there any pending issues before the Civil Service Commission that needs an additional member? If we could hear from the chair possibly, since he's standing and walking this way? Not that that would change anything, but.
The answer is yes. The member that resigned thought his term was going to be up at the end of the year. Well, it actually goes into May.
Right.
He is changing employment, and it's going to make it very difficult for him to make the meetings. He was already kind of having a hard time anyway. We have an appeal coming up on January 11th. And I was hoping we could get whoever you choose there at least for the December meeting, because I have asked the city attorney to go through with us again the appeal process. We've all been through it, but it's not something we do, thankfully, very often. So you kind of tend to forget, especially me, because I've got to be a judge, and I've never had to do that in any other job in my life. So city council, city attorney is very important in that. Well, we're going to have a new city attorney, too. So I guess what I'm saying is, if y'all are going to do this, I would ask that, let's see, would y'all be before us, or?
December the 5th will be our next
Okay,
meeting.
you could still, if you break this, you could still appoint someone in time for them to be at our meeting in December. Okay, then I don't have a problem.
Okay.
A lot of words for nothing.
Thank you, sir.
I have a motion and a second on the, a motion and a second to table the appointment of the Civil Service Commission till the first meeting in December. Is there any discussion on that, Councilmember Mosley?
I just assumed that it was not unanimous there. We're still split. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
All right.
All right, all those in favor of tabling the appointment until the first meeting in December, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. First of all, Mr. Jones, thank you for applying for the position. I would ask if y'all are able, Mr. Williams and Ms. Hughes, to return at the December meeting, and we'll kind of go through that process. I think that would be most advantageous, because we will be asking somebody who wasn't at this meeting to vote on that, and so that could be helpful. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time this has happened. It was a planning commission appointment is where I recall it not happening, appointment at the first meeting. So thank you all for coming, and we'll move on to the next agenda item. And y'all are free to leave. No one would look down if you did. That's your ride? In fact, we might look down on you if you stayed. No, just teasing. Thank you all. The next order of business is the Resolution 2022-51, calling for a special election. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2022-51, a resolution calling a special election in the City of Maumelle, Arkansas, for the purpose of submitting to the electors of the city the question of whether to reinstate the ban on certain breeds of dogs and for other purposes.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mosley, this is your resolution, so I'll let you introduce it, sir.
Okay, I'll try to work us through here. First of all, I would mention that I don't think we should be voting on the the ordinance that goes with this tonight. It's actually on the agenda, but it's, we've got, what this process does is we vote yes or no on a resolution here to send this, to basically send this ordinance to the county election commission, and they will put the wording on the ballot. And if the election, if the voters would vote to approve it, then that ordinance 1083 would be what is implemented. In other words, it would put the ban back on the dog breeds. So that's how that works. So I don't think we'll be voting on that. Am I correct, Mayor?
Yes, sir, that was correct. I had a misunderstanding with we had several different emails from the city attorney. So what is on the agenda for the next item, the first reading of 1083, is actually not being read. That is essentially effectively an exhibit to Resolution 22-51. Yes, sir.
That's correct. So it's basically a package. And if anybody's confused about this, ask me again. We'll get this right. But the whole idea is we're voting tonight on a resolution to put the dog question on the ballot. That's what we're doing. And by doing so, it just puts into gear a number of things that it's referred, various people have various responsibility, and gives them all authority to go ahead and go down the road and implement this thing. So it would be for the election that would be the presidential primary election in 2024. It'd be on March 5th. So that's how it works. Basically, we vote to pass this tonight. It just takes the dog issue straight out of our hands. It's over with as far as anybody lobbying us on anything again. It goes to the voters, they decide. And if they vote for those dangerous dogs in Maumelle, then we'll have them. If they don't, then we won't. So it's that simple. I'm a mainstream, I look out for the mainstream residents here in Maumelle. That's basically what I do. I think everybody's figured that out. If a development to me is unfavorable to the residents, then I don't vote for it. If an issue takes a step backwards on safety and it's something that isn't really justified to a great degree, then I vote against it. That's one reason I voted. That's why I voted against the lifting the dog ban. I just felt like we were stripping away a layer of safety for the residents. I think there was some faith placed in the legislation, thinking that perhaps there were enough procedures in place and labeling of certain dogs that we might actually even be safer here in Maumelle than we were before by going ahead and allowing dangerous dogs to come into town. But I don't think that's proved correct. The procedures, I think, were good, and I think that's what we would leave in this as time goes forward. But it still doesn't keep dogs from jumping fences. It doesn't keep owners from letting their dogs out. That's how these things happen. That's how that attack occurred this summer. Is a couple of dogs got out of the fence, a couple of pit bulls they attacked. They hurt a gentleman, killed his dog. And that seems to be kind of the story. And it's just, unfortunately, those dogs have a tendency to do that. We've seen it happen after this deal. We saw it happen in Memphis. Two little kids were killed by their family dogs. A newspaper columnist had his wife attacked up in Harrison. And then there's been a dog attack up in Springdale, and it hadn't been officially verified, but some people have been looking at, I guess, Facebook posts, and they think pit bulldogs were involved there. A toddler, a little girl, was killed. That's all I know about that. But this is a safety issue. It was passed according to the laws, it was due process. But because it does strip away a layer of safety for the residents, I feel like they need to vote on it. I think we need to verify and basically have them verify what the council's done and reaffirm it. I think there may be a lot of advantages to that. For one, nobody gets blamed next time. There will be additional times, I'm sure, over the years. I don't know if it'll happen next week or 5 years down the road, but there'll be somebody that gets bitten by a pit bull or attacked, or somebody may even be killed. And I think it would be best if the residents had decided via a vote to go ahead and bring them in, because then that's what the residents wanted. And I also think that it would probably, I don't know what the liability is, if what the chances are of somebody that's hurt or attacked or killed. I don't know what the liability of the city is, because we've lifted this degree of safety. But if the residents vote for it, then I don't think the city or anybody here would have any liability. So I think that's another advantage to passing this. Don't know how this is going to pass tonight or whether it'll pass, but I do think it's in the best interest. I think it's best to settle this issue once and for all. Get some monkey off our backs. Just let the residents decide. I think one side thinks 80% in their favor, the other side thinks 80 in their favor. So let's just find out. It's a win-win deal. I don't think anybody has anything to fear by going ahead and having an election, unless you're afraid you might lose. But anyway, so I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and pass resolution, what are we calling it? Resolution number 2022-51, calling for a special election. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I've got a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 2022-51, calling for a special election. Is there any additional discussion? Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, sir. Just a clerical question. This resolution references an ordinance 10XX, so it's not being specific with which ordinance it should reference?
It should reference, so that there was I misunderstood a couple things. It should reference ordinance 1083, which is what the intent was.
So that
What
would
we should probably do is make a motion to change it from ordinance number 10XX to ordinance 1083.
That's exactly what I'll make that motion to do, and I thank you for catching that, because I had that on my list and I passed right over it. But that's something we need to do, get that in there, so they'll know what ordinance they're referring to. But let's insert that 1083 under section 1 where there's 10XX. And then also, I'd make a motion the motion to include also inserting it there under section 2 at the end on the page 2. If the measure is approved ordinance number, blah, blah, blah. So I'd make a motion to insert that on both.
Thank you. We've got a motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Holt? Was that a second, sir?
I'm sorry?
Did you second?
I did.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. Just for the council's understanding, in the back end, when we're drafting ordinances and resolutions, they're all, at the XX is just the placeholder there. Motion is second to change all references in resolution 2022-51 of ordinance number 10XX to say ordinance number 1083. Any additional discussion on that matter? Councilmember Holt?
Now, let me just make sure I'm understanding. On the resolution, we're voting on whether or not to submit it to the constituents at the primary in 2024. Is that correct? And the other one, we're voting, which one of, I'm confused about the relationship between the two. What exactly is the difference that we're voting on between the two?
The motion on the floor right now is a motion to change the the wording that says ordinance number 10XX and change that to ordinance 1083. And then after that motion passes, if it passes, the motion on the floor will be to adopt Resolution 2022-51. Resolution 2022-51 sends to the voters ordinance number 1083. The changes invoked by ordinance 1083. So the first motion, and let's just take them one at a time. The first motion is just to make a clerical error, or to fix a clerical error. So any other discussion on that motion? Councilmember Mosley?
No, I'll put that off. Let's fix the clerical, and then I'll try to explain that better for Mr. Holt.
All right. All those in favor of amending ordinance number 10XX references in resolution 2022-51 to say ordinance number 1083, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes. That'll be amended to say 1083. Now the motion on the floor is the motion to adopt resolution 2022-51. Councilmember Mosley.
Yes, sir. Jess, or Mr. Holt, the way this works is to do a referendum in front of the voters, to get that process going with the election commission, you have to, the voters will basically be voting on an ordinance, is how this technically works. You can't just say, in fact, I called the election commission and asked this, and I also called the municipal lead, and I said, is there any way to just put something on the ballot that says, do you want certain dogs in Maumelle or not? And with a yes or no, and they said, you can't do that. You have to develop an ordinance that you send to the election commission, and basically then the voters vote on the ordinance. They're the ones that vote on the ordinance. And if they pass it, then what's in that ordinance then becomes law, is how that works. Does that make some sense? Because we're not going to be voting on that ordinance tonight. It's not really supposed to be on the agenda. It's supposed to be a package with this resolution.
Good, because it had me sort of confused, but that's fine.
All right. Motion second on the floor. Is there any additional discussion? Councilmember Mazzoni.
So that proposed ordinance, will that be read at a different time to make amendment, or is that how it will, that's it, as written?
This is it,
Okay, thanks.
as I understand it. So many legal questions with no city attorney here. Any additional discussion on resolution 2022-51? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting resolution 2022-51, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no.
No.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mosley?
I said yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
No.
Councilmember Gardner?
No.
Williams?
No.
Sorry, Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Tierney?
No.
Councilmember Holt?
Yes.
Motion fails. Resolution 2022-51 is not adopted. With that, as we discussed, there will not be a first reading of ordinance 1083, and so we will move on to resolution 2022-52, amending the 2022 general fund budget. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2022-52, a resolution to amend the 2022 general fund budget.
Right, this is just some housekeeping. We received some money from insurance, and we want to roll that over to the fire department's budget. I'll go ahead and, whoa, buttons galore. Councilmember Mazzoni.
Yeah, the question, so did the cost already, was that already factored in from another one, or is that, because I'm looking here, it adds the 5,063. Doesn't say anything about associated the costs.
let me first ask, do y'all have a corrected one? No. Okay, so it looks like the third whereas and the fourth whereas actually got stuck with some language from a past resolution for a roof.
Thank you.
And we missed it. So, the maintenance is for the aerial truck is what that should say. And it should be the $5,063, not the roof.
So you're saying the third whereas is the cost of the needed repairs to the aerial is $5,063?
Yes. And the fourth whereas should say aerial truck, not fire department's roof.
I'd entertain a motion to amend Resolution 2022-52 to change the third whereas from the cost of the needed repairs to the roof totaled certain dollars to the cost of the needed repairs to the aerial truck cost $5,063. And then the fourth whereas to replace fire department's roof with the aerial truck. Aerial truck. Okay, I've got a motion. Did I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes? Okay, withdraw that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I guess I'm confused. What's happened here is, did we have damage to the aerial truck?
Yes, sir.
And how did it happen?
How did it happen?
It's the roof of the truck?
No, it's not supposed to say roof in here. It's supposed to say aerial truck.
Okay, what kind of damage did we have?
Chief? So just in anticipation, we're going to see a lot more of these sorts of resolutions coming through where we're getting an insurance claim and then we're just saying, hey, we've been insured like we have been for the last millennia on different things, and then to appropriate that money over to where it's being spent.
Okay.
Chief?
Yes, sir. What had happened when we were doing the hydrant testing, the aerial truck actually backed into a mailbox and it damaged part of the door. And so we repaired the mailbox, and to repair the door that goes to the aerial truck, we did an insurance claim. The insurance adjusted it, and they deposited the insurance check into the general fund. So we're asking that it actually goes into our budget to pay for the damage to be repaired.
Oh, okay. That sounds pretty simple here. I was certainly confused by the roof and all that stuff there.
Yes, sir. Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry. Okay, I think I've got it. That's all I need, thanks.
Councilmember Tierney?
Yeah, so this is just for about $5,000 is all we're voting on this, at this time?
$5,063.
Okay, there's no $73,000 involved, I want to.
There's never been a 73, the whereas, which is not part of the meaningful part of the resolution, the powerful part has always been the 563, but yes,
I just wanted to confirm that, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any additional discussion on the motion to make those amendments to Resolution 2022-52? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
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 All opposed say no. Motion carries. Any discussion on Resolution 2022-52? Councilmember Mazzoni.
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-52.
Got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. So just a reminder, we're going to see more of these resolutions for insurance claims. We file them whenever there's an accident, and an entity our size, those do occur. In the past, that money was just, we just want to dot our I's and cross our T's when it comes to audit stuff. So we'll see a lot more of these, and we've seen a few where we damaged property or property of ours is damaged. We get the insurance money, but we can't spend that on the repair unless there's already padding in that line item. And then once we get the money in from the insurance company, for legal reasons, it gets rolled over to that by resolution. Thank you. Resolution 2022-52 passes. We'll move on to Resolution 2022-53, amending the 2022 general fund budget. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution 2022-53, a resolution to amend the 2022 general fund budget.
Earlier this year, the City Council increased or began charging fees for certain fire inspection and burn permits and that was back in May. Since that time, revenue has been generated primarily through the Fire Marshal's office. The Fire Department is asking to be able to use that money to purchase items that they need, such as body armor vests and fire prevention materials for the Fire Marshal's office. Is there any discussion on Resolution 2022-53? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, were these fees, and the permits, was it set up specifically to be drawn on for this body armor?
It was, I don't think it was, and Chief, you can come on down. I don't think it was set up specifically to be used for body armor, but it was a revenue that is anticipated for the fire department. So for the 2023 budget, that'll show up as a revenue for the fire department. And then appropriations will be made accordingly. Chief Buford?
Yes, sir. One of the things that we dealt with, this was something new that was added. So this was not, in next year's budget, there will be a line that goes for this, but since this was something that was new that was created, there wasn't really a way to ask for it. So we had to do this resolution, but the intent was to use it back to the fire marshal's office. And so it wasn't specifically laid out for body armor, but that's what their need is. And so we're asking for that so that we can apply that to the need that they have. They have some old vests that they need to upgrade, is essentially what they're trying to do with it.
Okay, let me see if I can say this correctly here. I tend not to vote for mid-year requests for things unless it's an emergency. And if this had been set up specifically for this, with the idea that once it accumulated, that money would then be released to go for this, I would vote for this. But this is as I understand it, kind of a general revenue item, and if it's not an emergency, I think it probably ought to just go into the budget process this year for next year. So I'll probably be voting no. Did I understand that correct?
Yes, because we didn't actually know what the revenue was going to be, and so there was no way to actually project it, and this was even before I was here. But what we did is we analyzed how much was there, and we looked at what needs we had for this year that we needed to address this year, and that was the needs that we looked at and we prioritized as our primary needs for this year.
And then if I could, Chief, this is very similar to the animal control ordinance where we started charging, the city started charging the adoption fees. And so mid-year, or in the middle of this year, there was a new revenue generated that was not considered last year. So next year's budget will have a new line item for revenue, and it won't be the revenue collected this year. That money will just disappear from the fire department's use if not used this year. And next year, they'll have an anticipated revenue line and kind of an offsetting revenue expense, basically. And so I don't want to speak for Chief Buford, but I think the idea is if they don't use it this year, it kind of just disappears into the general fund.
Yes, sir.
Because it wasn't designated for the fire department at that time.
Okay, you don't have money somewhere else in your budget that could go for this?
Not specifically for that. The lines that the fire marshals have, budgets have been exhausted for other expenses. So this is money that we prioritized for the need for this year.
And I'd also like to add, and it's kind of, when you get a new chief in the department, we've had an interim for a while. One of the things that Chief Buford is doing is going in and doing the assessment of needs and trying to get his department to where he wants it to be. So it's a little bit different than most, but I just wanted to say that really quickly. Did you have anything else, Councilmember Mosley?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Councilmember Gardner?
Motion to approve Resolution 2022-53.
We've got a motion and a second. Any additional discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Resolution 2022-53 is adopted. With that, I'm going to, we're going to do the first reading of ordinance 1084, establishing an improvement district number 18. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that ordinance by title only.
The City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, and ordinance to be entitled ordinance number 1084, an ordinance to establish and lay off the Maumelle Municipal Property Owners Multi-Purpose Improvement District number 22-18 of Maumelle, Arkansas, the DeVoe, providing for an emergency and for other purposes.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, and as is traditional with the City Council. If there's anyone here that would like to speak on this ordinance, please feel free to come forward. Not all at once. Ms. Ziegler, did you have anything you wanted to lead off with here?
I don't, I'm available.
Okay. So we do have a representative of the applicant here. Is the desire also for the emergency clause to be invoked? I don't have a request to waive the 3 readings. There is an emergency clause request, so I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. But unless there's a motion to waive the 3 readings. Okay. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion on ordinance 1084. Councilmember Mosley.
Yes, I'd like to ask the representative some questions, please. Thanks.
If you could please state your name for the record.
Sure. Casey Ziegler, that's K-A-C-E-Y, 126 Margot Drive.
Okay, thank you. I think I asked you last time whether this would be, what types of things would be included in this, and it sounded like a gate and fencing and maintenance of common areas and some things like that. Can you be more specific? Because the wording of this almost sounds like it could end up being a lot of different things, and I'm trying to pin you down, I guess.
Okay. So specifically today, we are looking at only landscaping, gates, and any common areas and maintenance. It is left more broadly for anticipated structural changes that we're not aware of, but that we can't anticipate today, but may come up down the road and be necessary to the community. It's not for... I know you've shown concerns about septic, other major development. This developer is specifically not using this as a financing tool, but more as a property owners association.
Okay, but it is open for some of those things based on the language here, is that correct? In case somebody changes their mind down the way,
Well, change mine down the way. I would say not for the development. It's really, we're just looking, I can tell you what the intention is today, which is to keep it narrow and keep it more as a way to maintain those common areas.
Okay. I guess I would say I would vote for this if the language was narrow. You know, what we're talking about for right now.
Right, and I'll tell you the vagueness is there because we don't want to limit it so specifically that we just say landscaping and gates, and then there's a need that we are not anticipating today, and we haven't left it open for that need.
Okay, I understand. But, okay, I'll be a no vote, but
I understand.
thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Ziegler, we've looked at these before, and is my recollection correct that state law basically sets forth that the council should approve these as long as we verify that the property owner is the legal property owner of that property?
That's correct. The state law does say that the city council must establish the district if we've met all of our requirements, which we have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion on ordinance 1084? Seeing none, this will be on second reading at the next city council meeting. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. That brings us to mayor's comments. I've distributed what is effectively a proposed budget meeting schedule. What we are anticipating is the budget book going out next week, being delivered Monday or Tuesday, but I put Tuesday, with the first budget meeting being Thursday, December 1st, the following budget meeting being December 6th, and the third meeting being the 13th. And if necessary, the 15th for a budget meeting. The last few years, we've knocked them out in 3 meetings, with the first 2 meetings being department head reports and presentations. And so really quickly, as is always the case, there's going to be someone who's not going to be able to make a meeting. But if there's anyone who just thinks that they can't meet multiple meetings, or a bunch of people think that one of these dates is dead, we can make some changes. Apologies on the delay in the budget process. We're still in time with city code and statutes, but not nearly as early as we would prefer to be. A lot of that has to do with the onboarding of the new budgeting software, which, as it gets set up, will make this incrementally easier and easier. And it's not just the budgeting element, it's the tying in of the budget element to the new finance software. And so it is working smoother now than it ever has in the past. So that's good. And I have a feeling Liz is probably as excited as I am about how it'll look next year. Once everything is set up, this process will be much more improved. We're already seeing benefits in the reporting software. That is, department heads can get virtually real-time status updates on what their budget looks like. And hopefully next year we'll be able to move toward a more public-facing transparency financial suite. But as we're focusing on all that, this has got delayed a little bit. Any of these dates just scream as unmanageable. It's condensed because we're trying to get it all adopted by the second meeting in December. If we can't do that, state law does allow that we can go to the first or until, I believe, January 31st. We'd need a continuing resolution for January. I don't think that's necessary. It is an option, though. Council Member Gardner.
I remember from last year, the budget process went so smoothly, those first 2 meetings. Is there any desire to combine those into one and have everything thrown out there all at once?
I'm fine with that. Typically, we tell the department, it also is an advantage to the department heads in that we say only half of them go. And they do tend to run an hour and a half,
Right.
depending questions. I don't mind making it a longer meeting.
It makes me no difference. I just recall from last year, the budget process was so much smoother that it seemed like it flew by. And when we got to that third meeting, we were just all looking around at each other like, why mess with it anymore? So.
Well, and as a reminder, I think the first meeting is we have half of the department heads report, and that takes a certain amount of time just to go through the reports, ask follow-up questions, get their visioning for the upcoming year as well as several years down the line. And that does take more time. I think we nailed it, though, so that by the time we got to the third meeting, there wasn't a whole lot of changes or discussion. But I'm open. Councilmember Mazzoni?
For me, the first is bad. It's the only bad day I have of those.
Is there anyone else that can't make the first?
All these dates are good for me.
Okay.
I've got a jury trial on the 6th, but it's okay.
Any additional comments on these? We will be recording going live, so you will be able to watch the video, and most of that is just department reports. And you are also welcome to phone in if you're able to. Just get with us beforehand, and we can get you to do that if you'd like. Councilmember Holt.
I probably jumped the gun. I was going to wait for council member comments.
That concludes mayor's comments. Council member comments. Councilmember Holt.
Good on it. All right. Well, on the agenda, it did have the report for the Planning Commission meeting, and we skipped that. But right quick, I'll just include, even though it was put off until December, I'll review it right quick. That it did meet on November the 17th, and it was about the new business for Crash Events Enterprises Event Center at the Maumelle Country Club. There were 4 speakers. There were 5 items on the agenda. that had to do with the conditional use permit, preliminary development plan, preliminary plat, landscape, and commercial building design. The discussion centered around the request for increased occupancy of the building from 335 people to 500 people, which also increased the parking space of up to 71 standard spaces and 13 golf cart. The building was to be increased from 12,000 square feet to 16,000 feet. It didn't include additional footprint because we're going to have a basement area built. After full discussion, there was too many questions to be answered, so they simply tabled the issue until December and make the decisions then. There is a letter from Holloway Engineering that they are requesting the name change from Northwinds Holding, what we approved our ordinance on, to Crash Events Enterprises, LLC. There is on the staff report notated November the 17th, it says that the development plan approval will be conditional or contingent upon the approval of shared parking agreement that meets the city parking requirements for shared parking. There is a letter from the president of the country club to Mr. Grummer. It says, we do not have a written agreement in place yet, but have agreed in principle to the terms. The Maumelle Country Club Board of Directors would have to review the final written agreement for approval. So they have not agreed officially to that, so everything is still up in the air. And I thought I would just let the council know that they did meet and they put it off until December. Go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your thorough report. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that subject just briefly too. I was there at the same meeting with Jess Holton. He and I sat a couple of chairs apart and listened to that. I appreciate very much the Planning Commission. They spent a lot of time, it was a very thoughtful process, a lot of good questions. And basically, it appeared that they were just not comfortable in going ahead on this. There were too many things. The parking was the big deal. There was no agreement, and then there was also it appeared to be the notification of the residents surrounding was the poor residents didn't know anything. I think the sign was actually placed. It was legally placed, but it was in a point where most residents wouldn't see coming in and going to their respective condos and that sort of thing. So I'm very I'm very pleased again that they're being thorough on this thing, and if it comes to us, we'll do the same thing. Also, I'd want to talk about the elections that we just had. I just wanted to congratulate those people that won, and it was election periods are always a tough period of time with everybody is tired and they get it's a rough period of time. I'm glad it's over with, and we move right on down the road. I think it's a great process, and I'm glad that there were people that were running for office and gave the voters a choice. I think that's important. And I'd like to just mention tonight's thing here. We two meetings ago we had discussed this possibility of doing this dog referendum, and everybody seemed to actually be interested in going toward that. And we had a good discussion, and we asked the city attorney to do some work to investigate that process, and I did some work. I talked to people down at the election commission a couple or three times. Did a lot of work, and I'd asked everybody at the time, let's don't cause a lot of work unless you're serious about this. It turns out you weren't serious at all, or you were then, and something changed your mind. There was one member of the council that wasn't at that meeting, but when he came back, things changed, the tone and everything else. If you're no longer interested, don't put me through a bunch of work or the city attorney. And I think this council needs to be more transparent. There was, I mean, we had a lot of things that we could have discussed. Mr. Mazzoni seemed to have a question about the ordinance and whether that was anything that could be changed before the election, but he didn't go in any detail. He didn't ask what the question was that he might have on his mind. After all that work, let's ask some questions. Let's be transparent. Seems like the bigger the issue around here, the less it gets talked about.
Thank you, sir.
And with that, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, sir. I would just follow up, if you're making accusations of non-transparency, if you could please state what you think those are.
There's just no discussion. There's just no discussion. People just vote no or yes without discussion on a very big issue that seems to be important to the voters. And I think what I said.
I think that
It's not an accusation. I'm just very disappointed in some council members, and it irked me to go through this kind of work to have it play out like this. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just make a recommendation then that, having not talked to any single person, council member, about this issue other than in the council meetings, to me, it was a very predictable result. This has been talked about multiple times through multiple different venues. The discussion at the previous council meeting where the council said that, I have no problem with the city council or with the city attorney looking into what that process would be, is there. I just think, and I'm not really trying to argue with you, we just have a constant problem with when one person gives their perspective, and those people in the audience and those people at home watching the video don't get the other perspective. And so I just feel that it is discredit to the city council as a whole to make accusations of lack of transparency because people won't argue with you on something that has been discussed a ton. And I think everyone's position has been stated multiple times on the record in the city council chamber. So I just felt that that's important to say, not for you or for us here, but for people who just may be watching tonight's city council meeting, but not other meetings. And I'll give you the floor if you'd like to.
For the election period of time.
Hang on. Let me make sure you're on the mic. Yes, sir.
Give me my rebuttal.
Yeah. Final word.
I just would like to see more transparency on these big issues. There seems to be some folks that just will not. There's some of us that will. Some people on the council will talk blue in the face on small things, and then on the big things they won't talk about it. I think we need to be more transparent, and people justify why. On a tough vote, why they vote the way they are, and try to convince others to vote the way they do instead of just doing what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional council member comments? Madam City Clerk?
No comments.
All right, at this time, just a quick reminder, Thanksgiving is this week. Offices will be closed Thursday and Friday. If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I've got a motion. Did I hear a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no.